Hello, White Sox fans, and welcome into the Sox On Tap postgame show presented by On Tap Sportsnet. Jonnie and here alongside NWI Steve, unfortunately discussing the first White Sox loss of the year. Steve, how you doing this Friday evening, my friend?
I'd have been doing a lot better had the Sox held on to that 3-0 lead.
I agree. I concur. I mean, it's a tough one, especially when things felt like they were going so swimmingly early on. I think that's the biggest disappointment for me. We got a lot to talk about, get into here. But before we do, make sure, listeners, that you're going and subscribing on Tap Sportsnet on YouTube. So you can go and join the comment section with us here. Give us your take on the game, what frustrated you, what you like, anything like that. We'll go and feature it on the broadcast. Make sure you go and follow us on social media at Sox On Tap and at On Tap Sportsnet. So, Steve, getting into this one, White Sox set the tone early. Eloy Jimenez provided the first inning run after Tim Anderson, a walk and some savvy base running there to steal second. I like what I saw early on.
Yeah, that first inning was pretty encouraging to see. Kind of a little bit of a continuation of what we saw from Tim last night, and then during the World Baseball Classic, we're seeing a little bit more patience at the plate from him. If that's an element that he can add into his approach offensively, that's going to make him just that much more dangerous. We saw the base stealing ability. He's always been very efficient doing that throughout the course of his career, and I think that's something we will definitely see a lot more of here with some of the rule changes here in 2023. And then Eloy being opportunistic, kind of the antithesis of what we saw yesterday, being first inning right there, having a guy in scoring opportunity and taking advantage of it right away.
Yeah, that's like my favorite word. So I was really happy to see that, especially jump on the Astros are solid starters from kind of top to bottom. They have no shortage of pitching depth, really. And so any of these guys that you face, obviously Framber Valdez is a lot of guys. Cy Young preseason pick. Christian Javier, no slouch either, facing him tonight. So I was happy with what the White Sox were able to do first. And then, hey, we got to talk about guts and nuts. Before we get into the bad shit, the stuff that happened later, how this game finally spiraled out of control for the White Sox. Guts and nuts. Lance Lynn was due for a good start against these Houston Astros. Tell me about what he did tonight.
He was going out there and he was diversifying his pitch mix a little bit more. This is something that I talked about with Anthony yesterday. He was working in that curveball more frequently. Some of the recent struggles against this Houston team with this cast of characters from Lance, we saw very much due to that fastball-centric approach that he has had for a number of years now. So working in that breaking ball since he's been doing since last August, he was going out there. He was getting some pretty good results. He got himself into a couple of jams, running some deep counts up there, walking a few guys, but he was able to wiggle out of it there for the most part. So he went out there and he put this team in a position to win a baseball game tonight. And that's really what you can ask for on the second night of the season.
Right, Steve, we were looking at final line here, 5 2/3, 3 hits, 2 runs, both of them earned, 4 walks, 6 strikeouts, 1 home run, and that home run was the one that chased him, 2-run shot allowed to Kyle Tucker at the end there. But overall, I loved the fire, passion, grit, TW. We got some great pitching ninja moments out of Lance Lynn tonight. We got a couple celebrations. We got a K-strut with the point up to the sky. I know he did that at Milwaukee a couple of years ago. That was the first time he really introduced that, and he's done it a few times. But then we also got the primal scream back in there, and he was fired up. I think as much as we've kind of went back and forth about, like I'm worried about guys going to the World Baseball Classic. How is this going to affect them? I feel like this was kind of a good, starter for Lance Lynn for the season. I feel like he got him into a rhythm earlier because he had to get going earlier.
Yeah, kind of got that adrenaline going, kind of approaching it like a big game playoff type atmosphere for him. I know he was definitely jacked up the game at Chase Field that I went and saw him pitch. So definitely getting the blood pumping a little bit more than you would typically for second game of the season here. So getting ramped up a little bit quicker, like you mentioned there. I think that's pretty exciting to see. And for Lance having the shortened year that he did a year ago due to some of the injury concerns that propped up with him and a knee issue, I think getting him ramped up a little bit quicker, I think that's going to be a good thing for this team and for Lance overall.
Yeah, I agree. So good to see good stuff from Lance in his first start of the year. But unfortunately, well, I guess we still had some more good news after that too, because when he exited there was a little 6 inning surge by our White Sox and 3 straight pitches to chase Christian Javier from the game, doubles on all 3 of these pitches. Benintendi's was a little bit of a chase up in the zone, but then some solid contact, both Eloy and Moncada driving balls to the right center gap and bringing home runs. Those two, and that made it 3-0 there. I, this is what you need from the heart of your lineup, especially after how many missed opportunities we saw early in the game yesterday. I know that Vaughn was eventually able to come through at the end yesterday, but kind of a different mix of it today where it happened.
Yeah, that was definitely a bright spot to see the 3 consecutive doubles there. Andrew Benintendi, a little bit of a hustle double right there, getting a nice read, seeing that the way that he made contact with that ball was kind of pulling Yordan Alvarez away from the throw a little bit. So being aggressive, had a nice slide in there to get into second base. And then, as you mentioned, Eloy and Yoan providing some more power in there. It was really frustrating to see them not be able to get that 4th run. That would have been a really pivotal run in that situation. I always like the idea of being able to go up 4 runs because then you're basically forcing a team to have to hit a grand slam, at least to tie you.
Right.
So that hurt a little bit. And that was something that kind of stuck out to me a little bit, is just not being able to push that 4th run across when you had an opportunity. And ultimately it did prove to be detrimental here.
Yeah. So to refresh my timeline, was that catch by Kyle Tucker out in right field during that 6th inning too, when the White Sox could have added more, or was that in the 7th or after?
No, that was in the 7th inning right there.
Okay. All right. Well,
yes.
So
after
there was an opportunity for extra bases that was taken away, right?
Yeah. After Yoan got that double to make it a 3-0 game, Gavin Sheets, Tony's baby boy, struck out on a really just a bad at bat. And then you had Yaz with the fielder's choice, and then Oscar Colas gets hit by a pitch, and unfortunately Elvis Andrus isn't able to come through with a clutch 2-out hit right there. So they had opportunities. They had some guys in spots to try to put a punctuation mark on that inning right there, and they just weren't able to do it tonight, unfortunately.
Yeah, so that one hurts, like you said, not being able to add more. But at the time, we're cruising, we're feeling good. But then it's time to turn it over to the bullpen, and this is where the bent then broke title of our episode comes into play, because James Lambert comes in, and his first work of the year was a close one. Because that foul ball that went down the left field line, it was sky high, so you couldn't really track exactly where it was on the TV broadcast, and then B, it had to be within I don't know what 5-10 feet of the fair pole down there. Luckily, on the foul side of it.
Yeah. There was a little bit of walking a tightrope right there, but look, ultimately he was able to get out of that inning there. Was able to get Julks to pop out to Gavin Sheets to close the frame. So no harm done. It's just a long strike in the books, as they say.
Yeah, right. So he was able to get out of his fill in there for Lance, but then Kendall Graveman comes on, and this is, I guess this is why I go with the bent first, because he lets off a single right to start the inning. And then he gets a ground ball double play, and you're like, okay, we got 8-hitter or whatever, 9-hitter tonight, I guess, right? Maldonado coming up. And this should be the time to get out of the inning. We already, that threat was alleviated if it was going to happen, and then he walks Maldonado. And Steve, this was the turning point of the game. Absolutely was right there,
100%.
Walking Maldonado, because then bases end up getting loaded, was another single and then a walk as well. After that, go to Jake Diekman. Obviously, all these runs still on Kendall Graveman, but Diekman was first pitch that he allowed Yordan Alvarez. Playing the lefty, no Aaron Bummer after using them last night. Go Jake Diekman, and we all know about that experience. Excuse me, the Jack Dickman experience from last year, and that thing goes off of that weird wonky wall of who knows where the hell is a home run, who knows where the hell is in play, what kind of crevices are out there. But either way, Benintendi can't track it down out there. It's too high anyway. Brings in all 3 runs there, clears the bases, and like you said, that's coming back to bite you where you couldn't get the 4.
Yeah, so there's a couple of key sequences in that inning right there in particular. You cannot walk Martin Maldonado. That is completely inexcusable. This is a guy that is a just one of the weaker hitters in all of baseball. He exists because of his ability to receive and to handle a pitching staff. You cannot walk him in that spot. And then you have Andrew Benintendi. When Jeremy Pena hits that soft liner to left field, I don't know if he misread it off the bat or if he lost the ball in the lights. I felt like that was a ball that should have been caught. That would have ended the inning right there. And then even on Yordan Alvarez's 3-run double, it almost looked like he just took a bad route there. So there were 2 opportunities there for Andrew Benintendi to put that inning to a close and weren't able to do it. So you have those 3 sequences happen right there in a very short time frame. That's how quickly an inning can turn against a team that's the defending World Series champions.
Yeah. And I think it's got to come. Obviously, you talk about those opportunities, and sure, could he have made a better play, made a better route? Who knows exactly what the outcome would have been? We don't have a time machine to go back. However, we do know that the walks just kill. You've talked about this in numerous articles at ontapsportsnet.com, the importance of White Sox pitching staff, not just starters, relievers as well, limiting walks this year because they skyrocketed right since 2020, essentially. And we're seeing, I don't think it was as big of a problem yesterday, but then seeing it creep up here in game 2. And it, in my opinion, kind of what ends up being the costly one. Cherry point, and yeah, technically game-winning hit Yordan Alvarez, but what set that up, right? Walks to guys that you shouldn't even be walking.
100%. They went out there yesterday. Dylan Cease didn't walk anybody in his 6 2/3. They had 2 walks over the course of the 9 innings there. That's what you need to see happen. And that's part of the reason why that was such a positive outcome yesterday. What did they have? I think 7 or 8 walks as a unit today. You can't do that against a team like the Houston Astros, even if they are without guys like Jose Altuve, without Michael Brantley. You just can't afford to give them free base runners, particularly at the very bottom part of the order where they are vulnerable. You just can't allow that lineup to turn over in situations like that. That was really kind of the undoing of this thing.
Ooh, this one cuts deep, Sal, man, in the comments saying this looked like a 2022 Sox Astros game. I agree. And like I said, that one cuts deep because we all, and remember the house of horrors that Houston has been, even dating back to playing there in 2021 playoffs, right? And then last year too, with all the struggles that the White Sox had. And it sucks because yesterday felt like he set a different tone. And it felt like a different Brandon. It was pretty clean, and it was cool and tough because of the late heroics and holding on, and kind of outclassing the Astros in a way. And said you turn around and you kind of shit down your leg today.
Yeah, for 15 innings here to start the season, things were pretty crisp for the most part, pretty fundamentally sound, and they looked a lot better than what we saw from them over the last year and a half. Because I think you could even go back to the second half of 2021 when they really kind of started to play mediocre baseball at that point. And then things just really turned on a dime here today, unfortunately. And so hopefully the pitching staff can go out there tomorrow, get that cleaned up, and just not give the free passes away to these Houston Astros hitters.
Yep, bent and then broke. That's the story of this one tonight. We got a couple other notes to touch on here from this one. Oscar Colas making his first MLB start, obviously made his debut with a pinch hit appearance last night, but made his start tonight, and got his first hit last night, but some offer. I know he got the hit by pitch today, but Steve, I just want to reiterate this, and it's not that you shouldn't be excited for players or root for players or any of this, but I've been wanting people to just pump the brakes on this because the prospect track record that the White Sox have had has not been exceptionally great in terms of their transition into the big leagues. And it's going to be a process. It's always going to be a process no matter what. But man, especially when you're thrusting into a role where this team is kind of like a make or break, essentially year. And it's Oscar Colas hype train and Oscar Colas for president and this and that. And I see so much of this shit on social media. And I'm sorry, maybe people are just making a shtick out of it or something. But my God, I see way too much of it. And then it's absolutely dead silent, radio silent when he goes over today. And as the performance that he does. And I just want to go and reference, you actually wrote it up. You put my thoughts into words a few months ago, or I guess kind of early spring training, I think. And it was, exercise, level of patience and, temper some expectations for Oscar Colas. So I just need to get that off my chest and get that out there. It's not that you shouldn't root for the guy. Shit, I'm rooting for the guy, but I just want that to be known and put it out there into the universe. And maybe if we collectively take a little pressure off of him, that'll take some weight off of his shoulders and be able to perform more freely and just be a guy, not have to be like the guy.
Yeah, I think that's pretty well summed up there, Jonathan. Just know that this is a first-year player in the major leagues. There's going to be ups and downs with this. There's going to be advanced scouts that are going to be out there. They're going to figure out a book on him early on, and he's going to have to make adjustments. That's always kind of the talking point, is that when you bring up a rookie, and if they have success initially, the league is going to adjust it. Then it becomes, how does he adjust back? We're waiting to see this whole process unfold with Oscar Colas. I think you're absolutely right that people need to temper the enthusiasm with him. Again, I want him to do well. I would love for him to just go out there and just start smacking the ball out of the ballpark and being an impact player on both sides of the ball right away here. But as you talked about here, we've been burnt by this so many times in recent memory that I think we just need to exercise caution with this. Let the game kind of come to him a little bit. Let him get the plate appearances under his belt, and I think eventually he will be a productive player here. But there's going to be some ups and downs with this process.
Right. I just wanted to get that out there. Thank you for backing me up on that. Finishing off Colas there, 0 for 3. Obviously had the hit by pitch. Struck out once, left 2 on base tonight. So remember, going to be a process, as Steve just said. All right, we'll get one question here from White Sox. Sally says, how do you think Robert looked at the plate tonight? Let you take it away, Steve. You had a pretty good take on that, and I think it speaks to what we all observe.
The Luis Robert thing is just really frustrating right now. We saw 2 kind of polar opposite at bats from him that were both equally frustrating. That first at bat in the first inning there, it's just same old slider. As I joked on twitter.com, the Luis Robert lay off a slider challenge, #impossible. I don't know why anybody would throw him a fastball, if we're being honest with you. But then his second at bat, we saw Christian Javier throwing some 93, 94 mile an hour fastballs right down the cock, and he's swinging over the top of them. Now, Jason and Steven Stone kind of talked about the high spin fastball that Christian Javier is able to create, and that riding action on it, which kind of gives it a little bit of extra life on that 93, 94, making it maybe seem like about a 97, 98, and he was swinging right over the top of those. So 2 very frustrating at-bats. He was able to get a hit. I want to say, I think it was in like the 7th inning or so. So he got on base once here today, but the plate approach is still a concern, and this is still one of the big reasons why I do not like him hitting in this number 2 spot.
Yep, I agree. And, I think I don't know about Benintendi at 3 either. And I feel like if you're moving Robert out of 2, that's a spot for Benintendi to slide up into, right? And maybe rearrange some things below it. So that would be my ideal one, but I'm not in the manager's chair. Glad we got your thoughts on that, though, because I agree. The chase stuff is, I had, a couple of other friends text me about it too. And it's like, well, Robert never learned to, lay off it. And it's like, doesn't seem like it. Doesn't seem like it at this point. All right, Steve, we're on to game 3 of this series. White Sox looking to go back up in this one with Lucas Giolito on the mound. He'll be facing Jose Urquidy. Battle of righties here down in Houston. Day game, 1:10 p.m. start down in H-Town. So what are we looking for from this contest?
Looking for Lucas Giolito to go out there and establish fastball command. Got to work ahead. Got to stay ahead. Got to limit the walks. We saw today what happens when you give this Houston Astros team free base runners. It's problematic. Lucas saw a spike in his walk rate a year ago. So this is going to be the first regular season start with these refined mechanics that he developed over spring training, going back to the elongated arm swing. So it's going to be fascinating to see if he's able to maintain consistency with his mechanics and repeatability with his delivery. And then also seeing if he's going to be very fastball slider heavy. He kind of deviated away from the changeup during much of the second half of last season. So be fascinated to watch if he starts to incorporate that into his pitch mix. That's another one for you, Anthony, here tomorrow.
There you go. Had the one drink every time Steve talks about pitch mix. All right. So we're up to at least 2 or 3 on the show. So keep that running all year here at Sox on Tap. All right. Steve, I'm going to turn to the offensive side here and let's get some picks to click. I'm going to give mine first, if you don't mind. And I'm going to go with Eloy Jimenez. First time I've done that this year. I know we've only had 3 games, but I always like a good Eloy pick. Liked the 2 doubles tonight. So I'm going to ride with him.
I think that's a really good pick right there. And assuming he's back in the lineup, I think we're going to get the first meeting of the AV club here in 2023.
Excellent. I had AV luckily in the home opener. Unfortunately, my dumbass forgot to send the tweet out so people didn't know, but I did have it. Besnick, our guy, Sox Insane, had it as well. So yeah, the AV, he'll be back in the lineup too, I would imagine, after Gavin Sheets was in there at first base tonight. So overnight for Gavin Sheets as well. So back onto the AV club. So I feel like that's like a little like kind of, I feel like that's an NBA term, but load management, right? A little bit with Vaughn, just with the way that his spring training ended. I kind of feel like that's what they're going for there. So, all right, everyone, thank you for tuning into this episode of Sox on Tap. Unfortunately, first loss of the year, but we're here to talk you through it. As always, hey, we'll be here all season. So make sure you subscribe on Tap Sportsnet on YouTube and follow us on social media at Sox on Tap and at On Tap Sportsnet. Steve, hit me with the final thought, and then let's get the hell out of here.
The legend Hawk Harrelson used to say, you're going to win 60, you're going to lose 60. It's what you do with those other 42. Chalk it up, get them tomorrow.
I love it. Great words of advice from Hawk there. I second that. And, hey, we're in position to potentially, get out of this thing with the series win still. Let's go and do it.
I like it.
White Sox forever.
White Sox for life.